the quiet, haunted town of Ravencrest, nestled at the edge of a dark and twisted forest, strange things were always afoot. The town's population had dwindled over the years, leaving behind only the most stubborn, those too terrified to leave, and the ones bound to the land by an ancient curse. People whispered about the woods, the leaning tree, and most of all, the creature that haunted them both, the Leaning Man. It was an ordinary Thursday when Olivia, a student at Ravencrest High, first spoke his name aloud. She wasn't the only one who knew about the dark legend of the Leaning Man. Everyone did. But no one dared speak it. They were too afraid that saying his name would bring him to life, or worse, draw his gaze toward them. But Olivia couldn't help herself. The whispers had been too loud, the fear too thick in the air, and one day, while sitting in the library, she whispered to her friend, "Sam, the Leaning Man is real. I've seen him in my dreams." Sam stared at her, half laughing, half terrified. But Olivia's eyes were wide with fear, and she wasn't joking. "Do you think he's out there?" Sam asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't think he's just out there," Olivia murmured, her gaze darting to the window that overlooked the trees. "I think he's closer than we realize." That's when the fear spread, quietly at first, like a whisper in the hallways, a chill in the air that everyone could feel but no one could explain. Word spread among the students, and soon every conversation held an undercurrent of dread. Some laughed it off, convinced it was just an old story. But deep down, they all knew the truth. The Leaning Man wasn't just a legend. He was real. As Olivia's words began to circulate, the effects of her whisper were felt far beyond the school. By the time the next day dawned, the terror was already gripping the town. Children couldn't sleep. Parents grew afraid to take their eyes off the woods. Everyone felt it. The unmistakable presence of the Leaning Man, lurking just beyond the edge of their reality. And then it happened. Zachary, a quiet boy who lived just outside of town, ventured too close to the forest one night. He hadn't heard the warnings, hadn't felt the weight of the curse upon him, and so he wandered into the woods alone. The moon hung heavy in the sky as he made his way through the trees, a strange pull urging him forward, deeper into the shadows. The woods were unnaturally still, the usual sounds of night silenced as if the earth itself held its breath. Zachary's heart pounded in his chest as he pressed on, the chill creeping into his bones. His footsteps faltered as he reached a clearing. The leaning tree. The twisted, gnarled trunk stood before him, an ancient sentinel watching the forest. But it wasn't the tree that caught his attention. It was the figure standing beside it, the Leaning Man. Zachary froze, his breath caught in his throat. The creature before him stood tall, its body unnaturally twisted, leaning at a grotesque angle. The Leaning Man's limbs dragged behind him as if they were too heavy for his body to bear. His sunken eyes locked onto Zachary, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. The trees, the ground, the air, everything bent around the creature. The whispers in Zachary's mind grew louder, telling him to run, but his body wouldn't obey. Fear paralyzed him. Suddenly he felt something cold and sharp touch his skin. He looked down to see a strange, twisting mark forming on his arm, like a brand burning into him, and he knew then that the curse had claimed him. The Leaning Mark. There was no escape now. His life was forfeit, and the Leaning Man would follow him, always watching. The next morning, Zachary was found, unmoving, pale and lifeless, just outside the forest. The mark on his arm was gone, but the fear in his eyes was a reflection of something far worse. He had seen the Leaning Man, and it had taken him. The town descended into chaos. Families locked their doors, kept their children close, and the whispers became louder. The school became a breeding ground for rumors and paranoia. Olivia, unable to shake the feeling of dread, tried to warn everyone that it was too late, that the Leaning Man had already set his sights on Ravencrest. As the days passed, more and more people vanished, marked by the Leaning Mark. The curse spread through the town like wildfire, and soon no one dared to go near the woods. Parents forbade their children from even speaking about the Leaning Man, but it was already too late. His terror was a part of them now. But the town's fear reached its breaking point when the Leaning Man arrived at Fred Holloway's home. The Holloways, one of the few families that had survived the curse for generations, were no strangers to the horrors of Ravencrest. But they had no idea that the curse had returned to claim them. Fred Holloway, a quiet man who had always done his best to shield his family from the terror that plagued the town, had no choice but to face the truth. He had to confront the Leaning Man before it consumed them all. But as he stood in the doorway of his home one evening, his eyes fell upon the twisted figure in the distance, dragging itself toward him, and the truth became undeniable. The Leaning Man was real, and Ravencrest was his domain. No one was safe. As Fred's family huddled together, the Leaning Man drew closer, his broken body shifting through the shadows. He had already marked them, his whispers creeping into their minds. And as the night drew near, they realized that there was no escaping the curse of Ravencrest. The Leaning Man would always return, and it was too late for them all. The Leaning Man always comes back. The Holloways knew fear. They had lived in Ravencrest their whole lives, watched neighbors vanish without a trace, and heard the screams that came from the woods late at night. But this was different. This was personal. Fred stood at the front of his house, his body tense, his breath shallow, as he watched the grotesque figure in the distance, the Leaning Man dragging itself closer. Behind him, Eleanor Holloway. His wife clutched their youngest son, Gavin, to her chest. Their daughter, Maisie, gripped the family dog, Copper, while their eldest, Thomas, stood beside his father, barely keeping his composure. Isaac, the middle child, peered through the window, his fingers trembling against the glass. The house had stood for generations, a relic from a time before anyone could recall. It was sturdy, reinforced against the wind and rain that often battered Ravencrest, but no walls could keep him out. The Leaning Man did not break in. He did not claw at doors or smash windows. He did not need to. Once he marked you, he was already inside. A whisper slid through the walls like a cold draft. "You've seen me now." Eleanor let out a small, choked sob. Fred didn't turn away. His eyes stayed locked on the figure as it shambled forward, its crooked body bending at unnatural angles, its sunken, hollow eyes fixed on the Holloway home. The ground beneath its feet rippled as if reality itself rejected its presence. The sky above darkened, the stars swallowed by an encroaching void. And then the Leaning Mark appeared. Maisie screamed first. A jagged, twisting mark like a burned-in scar etched itself across her forearm. Then Isaac clutched his chest, his breathing ragged as the same mark appeared there. Eleanor, Fred, Thomas, each of them bore the mark now, a symbol of his claim. Even Copper, their dog, let out a pained whimper as something unseen burned its way into his fur. The Leaning Man had taken hold of them, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Nowhere to run. The Holloways did what every Ravencrest family before them had done. They tried to leave. Before sunrise, Fred threw everything they could into the truck. Food, water, clothes, whatever they could grab in their frantic rush to escape. Eleanor didn't argue. Maisie sobbed silently as she held Copper in the back seat, the dog whining at the air, as if sensing something just out of sight. Thomas sat rigid, staring out the window. Gavin, the youngest, hadn't spoken since the previous night. He simply sat with a vacant expression, his lips moving in whispers only he could hear. The truck's engine roared to life. Fred hit the gas. Ravencrest blurred past them as they sped down the empty road. For a moment, it seemed as if they had escaped. The road stretched ahead, the thick trees of Ravencrest growing smaller in the rearview mirror. The morning sun broke through the clouds, its golden light warming Eleanor's trembling hands, and then everything tilted. The road wasn't straight anymore. The trees weren't standing upright. The sky above seemed to lean at an impossible angle, twisting and bending as though reality itself had been placed inside a funhouse mirror. Fred slammed the brakes. The truck skidded sideways, tires screeching against pavement that seemed to curve and warp beneath them. And standing in the center of the road, waiting for them with that unnatural, grotesque lean, was him, the Leaning Man. You can't leave Ravencrest. Not when you've been marked. The horror inside. When the Holloways woke, they weren't in the truck anymore. They were home, back inside their house, as if they had never left. As if they had never even tried. The escape had been nothing more than an illusion, a trick of the leaning man's reality-warping presence. Fred sat up first, his breath hitching in his throat. Eleanor was beside him, clutching Gavin, who still hadn't spoken. Maisie whimpered from the corner of the room, her hands gripping her arms, trying to claw away the leaning mark burned into her skin. Thomas and Isaac sat by the window, watching something move outside. Fred followed their gaze. The leaning man stood just beyond the tree line, watching them, waiting. He did not move. He didn't have to. The house had changed. It wasn't theirs anymore. The walls bent at strange angles. The floor dipped as if sinking into the earth. Shadows slithered across the ceiling, stretching in ways that defied logic. They were inside. The leaning man always comes back. The Holloways knew fear. They had lived in Ravencrest their whole lives, watched neighbors vanish without a trace, and heard the screams that came from the woods late at night. But this was different. This was son, Gavin. More. Following day, man's growth. Their family stroked Gavin's hair as the boy finally spoke for the first time since that night. "He's here," Gavin murmured, his voice distant. Fred turned. The leaning man stood in their bedroom, his body twisting at impossible angles, his head lolling to the side in a grotesque lean. His face, what little of it remained human, stretched into something resembling a grin. Eleanor screamed as the walls bent inward, closing around them. Fred felt the world twisting, reality warping, the shadows swallowing them whole. And then, nothing. Ravencrest remains. The Holloway house stood empty the next day. No one questioned their disappearance. No one spoke of it. The town of Ravencrest simply moved on, as it always did, pretending that nothing had ever happened. By the following week, someone new had already moved into the house, a family of 5. A mother, a father, a daughter, 2 sons, and a dog. It was already too late for them. The new family that moved into the Holloway residence in Ravencrest was the Thompson family. Father John Thompson, a diligent carpenter. Mother Mary Thompson, a compassionate schoolteacher. Daughter Emily, a curious 12-year-old with a love for nature. Sons, Lucas, a 10-year-old with a knack for drawing, and Ethan, a playful 7-year-old. Dog Buddy, a loyal golden retriever. Unaware of the house's dark history, the Thompsons settled in, eager to start anew. However, it wasn't long before they began experiencing strange occurrences, whispers in the night, unsettling dreams, and fleeting shadows. Emily, exploring the attic, found an old journal belonging to Maisie Holloway. The entries detailed the Holloway family's encounters with the Leaning Man, a malevolent entity haunting the nearby woods. As Emily delved deeper, the eerie events intensified. One evening, Buddy barked furiously at the edge of the forest. John investigated, glimpsing a twisted figure, the Leaning Man lurking among the trees. Realizing the imminent danger, the Thompsons sought help from the townspeople, only to be met with fearful silence. Desperate, Mary researched local legends and discovered that the Leaning Man was once a resident of Ravencrest, ostracized and left to perish in the woods. His vengeful spirit now targeted families in his former home. Determined to break the curse, the Thompsons performed a ritual of forgiveness and remembrance, acknowledging the wrongs done to the Leaning Man. As they completed the ceremony, the oppressive presence lifted and the sightings ceased. The Thompsons remained in Ravencrest, ensuring the story of the Leaning Man was told, so history wouldn't repeat itself. The Thompsons' successful dispelling of the Leaning Man's curse brought a sense of relief to Ravencrest. However, the town's dark history remained a subject of whispered conversations and cautionary tales. Determined to prevent future tragedies, the Thompsons collaborated with other residents to uncover the origins of the Leaning Man and ensure the safety of their community. Unveiling the past. Through extensive research and interviews with long-time inhabitants, the Thompsons discovered that the Leaning Man was once Samuel Granger, a reclusive artist ostracized for his unconventional appearance and misunderstood behavior. In the late 1800s, after a series of unexplained events, the townspeople blamed Samuel, leading to his exile into the surrounding woods. Consumed by anger and sorrow, Samuel's spirit transformed into the vengeful entity known as the Leaning Man. Preserving the peace. To honor Samuel's memory and prevent the resurgence of his vengeful spirit, the community established an annual Remembrance Day. On this day, residents gather to share stories, celebrate the town's history, and reflect on the importance of acceptance and compassion. The event serves as a reminder of the consequences of fear and prejudice, fostering a more inclusive and understanding environment. A new chapter. With the curse lifted and the town united, Ravencrest began to thrive. The Thompsons, having played a pivotal role in the town's transformation, found solace in their decision to move to Ravencrest. Their home, once a place of fear, became a symbol of hope and renewal. As the years passed, the legend of the Leaning Man evolved from a tale of terror to a story of redemption, reminding future generations of the power of empathy and community. In embracing their past and learning from it, the people of Ravencrest ensured that the shadows of history no longer dictated their future. The Leaning Man's legacy became a testament to the town's resilience and commitment to growth, proving that even the darkest stories, the Thompsons' successful dispelling of. As the years passed, Ravencrest's transformation continued, with the community embracing its history and fostering a culture of inclusivity and remembrance. The annual Remembrance Day became a cornerstone event, drawing visitors from neighboring towns and rekindling connections among residents. A living legacy. The Thompson family, having played a pivotal role in unveiling the town's past, became stewards of its legacy. Their home, once shadowed by fear, was transformed into the Ravencrest Historical Museum. The museum showcased artifacts, personal accounts, and art pieces from Samuel Granger, the man once known as the Leaning Man. Visitors could trace the journey from misunderstanding and fear to acceptance and healing. Education and outreach. Understanding the importance of education in preventing history from repeating itself, the community introduced programs in local schools focusing on empathy, history, and the consequences of prejudice. Workshops, storytelling sessions, and art projects encouraged students to explore Ravencrest's past and reflect on their roles in shaping its future. A beacon of hope. Ravencrest's journey from a town haunted by its past to a beacon of hope and transformation served as an inspiration to other communities. The story of the Leaning Man and the town's commitment to growth and understanding became a testament to the power of confronting and embracing history. Years after the town of Ravencrest believed it had laid its darkest chapter to rest, an unsettling energy began to permeate the air. The annual Remembrance Day, once a symbol of unity and healing, now seemed overshadowed by an inexplicable sense of dread. The ominous signs. Residents reported chilling encounters, whispers echoing through the woods, shadows moving against the natural flow of light, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. Animals behaved erratically, and electronic devices malfunctioned without reason. The once peaceful nights were now filled with restless dreams and unshakable anxiety. The return. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a dense fog rolled into Ravencrest. From its depths emerged the Leaning Man, more grotesque and horrifying than ever before. His form was a twisted amalgamation of human and spectral features, his eyes burning with vengeful fury. But this time, he was not alone. Flanking him were other tormented spirits, their faces contorted in eternal anguish. These were the souls of those who had suffered injustices in Ravencrest's past, now awakened and bound to the Leaning Man's malevolent will. The town's descent. As the spectral entourage advanced, Ravencrest descended into chaos. Buildings aged and crumbled in moments, mirrors shattered, and fires ignited without cause. The spirits sought retribution, targeting descendants of those who had wronged them, as well as anyone attempting to interfere. The town's attempts to combat the malevolent forces proved futile. Traditional rituals and modern interventions alike failed to quell the onslaught. Panic spread, and the once tight-knit community found itself unraveling under the weight of fear and despair. A glimmer of hope. Amidst the turmoil, a group of townsfolk delved into Ravencrest's history, uncovering forgotten years after the town of Ravencrest believed it had laid its darkest chapter to rest. An unsettling energy began to permeate the air. The annual Remembrance Day, once a symbol of unity and healing, now seemed... Despite the town's efforts to confront its haunted past, the Leaning Man remains an enduring presence in Ravencrest. The Leaning House still stands, its decaying facade a constant reminder of the unresolved malevolence within. The surrounding Ravencrest woods continue to exude an ominous aura, with tales of curses and unexplained phenomena persisting among the townsfolk. The community's previous attempts at reconciliation, though well-intentioned, failed to address the deep-seated anguish and injustice that birthed the Leaning Man's wrath. As a result, his spirit endures, and the woods remain a place of trepidation, deterring even the bravest souls from venturing too deep. In light of this, the townspeople are faced with the daunting realization that confronting the Leaning Man's legacy requires more than rituals and ceremonies. It demands a profound reckoning with the past, an unearthing of buried truths, and a commitment to genuine atonement. Only through such unwavering dedication can Ravencrest hope to lift the shadows that have long plagued its lands. As the Leaning House continues to loom over the town, and the cursed woods whisper their dark secrets, the path to redemption remains fraught with challenges. Yet, within the heart of Ravencrest, there lingers a glimmer of hope, a belief that through collective courage and introspection, the cycle of fear can finally be broken. The curse of Ravencrest and the dark presence of the Leaning Man never truly fades. Despite the town's best efforts to heal, the very air seems charged with an unspoken tension. The Leaning House, even in its dilapidated state, stands unwavering against the passage of time. Its roof tilts unnaturally, a grotesque mockery of architecture, and the trees around it bend, as though bowing in reverence to the malevolent force within. Rumors still swirl about the Ravencrest woods. Some say it's the trees themselves that are cursed, alive with malevolent energy, while others whisper of unseen forces stalking the shadows. Few dare to walk its path at night, and those that do are often never seen again. The town, once full of life, now feels more like a forgotten relic. The dwindling population speaks of its dwindling hope, as if the town itself is dying slowly, suffocating under the weight of its own history. For generations, families have come and gone, yet the shadow of the Leaning Man stretches further each year. One winter evening, the wind picks up, howling through the streets as if urging the people to remember. It's the anniversary of the curse, the day when the Leaning Man first emerged from the shadows. And though the town tries to forget, something stirs within the woods, something ancient and powerful, as if the woods have their own will. In a quiet corner of town, Fred, the last remaining elder who remembers the old ways, stands near the edge of the woods. His eyes, clouded with age, flicker with knowledge. He knows the curse isn't over. It never truly ends. The Leaning Man is waiting. Fred feels the pull, the familiar weight in the air, the vibrations that stir deep in the ground. As he steps forward, a voice, low and distant, calls out from the dark woods. It's the Leaning Man, and this time he's not alone. His spectral army, drawn from the bones of those who never found peace, rise from the earth itself. They are not the same as before. They are stronger, more vengeful. And they are coming. As the fog thickens and the ground trembles beneath their feet, The few who still remain in Ravencrest realize with dreadful certainty that they can no longer run from the past. The town's history, its secrets, and its sins have finally caught up with them. The Leaning Man and his army return to claim what was promised to him, vengeance and the destruction of the town that turned its back on him, on the injustice that created him. And this time he will not rest until Ravencrest is no more. The shadows grow long, and Ravencrest falls into a darkness deeper than it has ever known. The Leaning House looms ever closer to the town, a symbol of the terror that awaits, and the curse of the woods stretches beyond the trees. The battle is not yet over, it has only just begun, and when the dawn rises again, will anyone remain to see it? Or will the curse of the Leaning Man finally consume Ravencrest? The curse of Raven. In the upcoming sequel, Rise of the Leaning Army, the malevolent presence of the Leaning Man intensifies, plunging Ravencrest into unprecedented terror. The Leaning Man, now more powerful than ever, summons an army of vengeful spirits, souls of those wronged throughout the town's history. This spectral legion emerges from the cursed grounds of the Ravencrest woods, their collective anguish manifesting as a formidable force bent on retribution. As the moon cast its pale light over Ravencrest, the town seemed to hold its breath. The Leaning